Okay, and I guess we're live here now. This is the first hangout that SEO Pros is doing. It's called SEO Pros Helpline. So anybody who's got a question, put her here in the comments on YouTube or in our on our page, which is SEO Pros on Google+. And today I'm honored to have Debra and Brent Rankin. They're the people that are going to be basically our experts today on link building. And then we have the usual crew of Aaron and Steve and Liz and George. I guess Doc's here now too. So we got Doc Sheldon on board. Okay, folks, so we'll be starting this now and start with talking about link building in 2013. I spoke to both Debra and Brent beforehand and talking about some of the things that we used to do and some of the things that we don't do now. And one of the things that we all kind of agreed on is there's not a lot of consensus, and this doesn't happen in our industry very often, that there's not a lot of consensus about what is a bad link. So I'll hand it off to Brent or Debra. I guess start with ladies first. Debra, your thoughts on this?
What am I thinking about? You want me to tell you what I think is a bad link?
Yeah, or maybe why there's some confusion out there as well.
I think anytime that there's a major change that happens online or anything new is introduced, there's always a slowdown period where people have to get used to it or have to become accustomed to the changes, and so there is some confusion there. But honestly, those changes happened a while ago, and everybody kind of should be understanding what's going on and working into new plans and into new ventures. Everything that worked before still works. It just works a little bit differently, and I've always said there's no such thing as a bad link unless it's broken. But really what you need to focus on more than the links themselves or the pages that they sit on. So for me, it's less about what you do and more about where you do it.
I would concur with that. And you, Brent?
Just being in the industry for a while, to me, it's amazing how often the focus is shifted on strategies, what's hot right now, what small businesses want, what enterprise is looking at as far as, link building strategies. I think a lot of it's fueled by, just penalties that are coming out, new technologies, and just, general hype around the strategies. But it's interesting to me, that it changes so quickly that there really isn't any time to establish any sort of, yes, this is bad, no, this is not bad, per each strategy. If we're looking at like just outreach specifically, that's another one where you can look at it so many different ways. It's really how it comes down to running the campaign. It's really tough. I mean, it is tough to educate the consumer and stay current on it yourself.
Yeah, I think the education of the consumer is one of the toughest parts because, when the people in the industry are having trouble understanding what's happening, it's, for people that it's part of their business, but it's a passive part. It's like the lawyer. They don't want to become a lawyer in order to hire one. And yeah. I think that's, and has been a problem for quite some time.
Right.
They understand the changes in the business. They know that things are different, and they know they're either losing rankings or they're getting messages that they're not sure of. I think the biggest part of the confusion is nobody really knows what to do to fix it. And while we get some direction from Google, sometimes it's a little bit vague, about
That's
really what you
way to put it.
Well, yeah, I'm being nice today. But seriously, people really want more than anything. They want answers. They would like some direction on what they can do to help them rank their sites well. From that, it splits off down many, many different roads. Everybody has a different way of doing things, and everybody has a different goal in mind. So I think everybody gets it. They just don't know how to move forward.
Yeah. One thing that I was talking to a couple of prospective clients yesterday, and one thing that I picked up on is a lot of them have been doing a fair amount of link building. And I think they were both kind of wondering if they'd been kind of, could have spent their money a little more. It might have been better spent another way. They didn't really see where they got benefit. Where they did even a year before that. You know what I mean? It wasn't, a lot of things in our industry are kind of gradual. But sometimes it gets a twist and it's quick and happens fast.
You can still make things happen fast. I guess the issue there really is longevity. How long do they last? So, what worked 18 months ago, 2 years ago, just really doesn't work that much anymore. And I'm not really sure why everybody's surprised either. Things constantly change. Everything changes. Everything morphs. Everything grows. Like Brent said, technology is constantly coming on board. So, we just have to, if you're a good marketer, a good webmaster, be aware of that, be aware of the changes, keep up on it, and learn how to adapt.
Right.
That's that old saying, adapt or die.
Everything that happened, as far as the algorithm updates in 2012, Google had kind of been preaching that for a long time, and it seemed like, okay, we're finally going to take action on what we've been saying. So, I definitely wasn't surprised that so much turbulence happened in the SERPs, but it's something now, where if you're looking at some sort of SCM strategy that involves link building, some companies, they'll spend a lot of money and a lot of time just backing the strategy. There's really no confidence that I want to go on record saying, okay, here's $500,000, let's implement this strategy, and I can tell you 6 months from now you're going to be good. That's something where your personal experiences, that might make you a leader in this specific field, but just one person's experience is pretty subjective. That's a big reason why I definitely want to push for some transparency on strategies between other professionals.
Yeah. The other issue is also what vertical or what niche you're in, because what works fabulously well in one may not work at all in another.
Right.
And in a third, it may get you penalized, because there are some niches out there that certain types of link building are still common, and they work wonderfully.
Yeah.
But it's because everybody in that industry does it.
Right.
And so that there is no real differentiation between that group. But if you were to take that tactic and put it somewhere else entirely, you run a fairly serious risk with that particular website. And that's one of the biggest issues we've always seen is, well, this works for them. So that's how we wound up going from, getting a few links in the best directories to getting a few 100,000 links in any directory.
Yep.
To what Steve just said, take it off. I don't disagree. I think some things work better in some than others, simply because the news outlets and the sites are available to host more links. I don't disagree with that. But one of the things as webmasters and as SEOs we don't talk as much about are the type of webmasters that are online. When people come to me and they say, can you help me with strategy? If they're a serial entrepreneur, meaning they're a webmaster with multiple sites, many sites, I'm not talking 2 or 3, I'm talking multiple sites, serial webmaster. If they're a small business person, if they're a major brand, a knowledgeable brand, or if they are someone who is what I call the middle of the road webmaster, there's really 4 different kinds. Each one of them has a different focus. The serial webmaster, man, it's time and money, baby. That's what they want. It's time and money. And they have to make things scale over a lot of websites. So they can't spend a lot of time doing the nitty-gritty marketing, say that, maybe the webmaster or the brand just throws money at it, and that's why they do as well as they do. The poor guy who's the small webmaster, the small guy, he doesn't have the time or the money. And so he's looking to do the easy things that he can do, and once he does them, he's kind of at a loss. So while I totally agree that it is niche, I think in a bigger picture, it is your goal too. Like I said, if you've got multiple sites, the way that I'm going to approach that business owner is going to be way different than I would say a brand marketer or a small business guy, or what I call the middle of the road guy or gal.
Well, those smaller mom and pop businesses, they're the ones that are at the most risk.
I don't know if
they don't tend to have the budget to explore better opportunities, and so they go to the $250, $300 a month guy who's going to use the lesser quality link building tactics because they simply can't push that, and then they're the ones that wind up getting hurt the worst.
Hopefully only once, and there is, I get split into these discussions all the time. There's a part of me that says there's enough information online and enough sources online where you can read up and have all the information and know what's right and what's not right. And Google's pretty clear about it as well. And then there's constantly people streaming in that, that don't maybe know about those resources. So while I agree that it's definitely by niche nowadays for your success online, I also think it's what type of webmaster you are. How many times have we, as professionals, given advice that's never taken?
Oh,
constantly.
Could
So
write a dictionary on that one.
Sure, but that's human nature. That's not a criticism. That's just human nature. So trying to help people when you, as somebody like Brent and I, who are out there as linking strategists selling services, it's hard to box this stuff. And that's what people want, boxed answers. People want to know that this is working or that is working. And sadly, it's gotten, because of the way things have come, it's just gotten bigger than that.
I agree there, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'd go along with that as well.
The thing is, though, that I think everything still works. It works a little differently. And sometimes you have to add other signals that you might not have had to use in the past. Like, for instance, in the past, you would just do news releases, and they had a life of their own. Now you do a news release, but don't do Twitter, and don't put it on Facebook, and don't put it on Google+. Guess what? They're skeptical of that press release, because you're not promoting it where they expect you to be promoting it. You're putting it on these little backwater places, i.e., they see you just trying to get rank. Not. I think that's where you that's where a big piece of it, in my opinion, is. And those signals are like verification signals. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. You have to be very strategic about where you're getting placement on new fresh content, and one level deeper, the actual authorities of the profiles that are sharing them as well. That's one thing I really focus on, is the actual brand itself and every possible signal that's coming into Google. Whether it be Facebook, Twitter, even LinkedIn company profiles, just really having some integrity behind those profiles as well.
Right.
I think it is really important these days to, no matter what channel you're at, you really have to come correct.
So let's talk about sending out press releases, because people like to do that as a tactic all the time, and it is a tactic that still works to some degree. So when you use companies like PR Web, perhaps in Business Wire, and those types of companies, the bigger companies that have the contacts and have the contracts with companies, the media people, with the newspapers and the TV outlets and the rest of them, where people sometimes don't find the benefit anymore is doing the free press releases. That submission services, I'm sorry, the free press release submission services, those types of services are no longer effective because Google has discounted all the crappy little sites that they were spitting stuff out to. But when you still go back to people like PR Web and you pay for the upgraded service and you actually have something that's worth listening to, then it does get picked up by news sources, especially if your news source is geographically targeted.
Yeah.
If you have something that you're talking about in Austin, Texas, or Toronto, or Chicago, or whatever, it tends to get picked up by local services more. When you send that stuff out too makes a big difference. If you're trying to release a press release on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, good luck. It's usually easier toward the end of the week and on the weekend, but you really need to have something worthwhile to put out. And once you do, then it will get picked up.
Yeah.
For the most part, the media will not pick up and run a story if they go to your website and see it's a piece of crap and you don't have an About Us page or you don't have a media page to support anything that's in the press release. They are not stupid. They know that as well. So press releases still work, but they work by people who are sincere about putting them out and sending out for news and not just for building links. And I think that's where the difference comes into, and it kind of annoys me when people say, oh, press release links are dead. They're not. Just like infographics are not dead.
I have a question for you on that. With the potential for further online pickups that actually, have value, how do you treat the anchor text within the, PR Web link? Is that something, you're only doing branded now, or?
No, and the press release, when you're sending out press releases, if you're actually announcing news, what should be hyperlinked is the event or the company and not so much the anchor text.
Yeah.
So, if it works out that you have your keywords in your event, or your thing that's happened or whatever it is that you're announcing, then that's fine. But I don't optimize the press release for anchor text. I optimize the press release for the media so that the media picks it up. I want them to run it.
I'd imagine you have to be a lot more careful with that now, just because of the amount of syndication, how many times that actual link and anchor text will be picked up. Just especially for a new domain starting out, looking at the anchor text kind of saturation level within the link profile. If they're sending out a press release right away with a newer link profile, is Google looking at that in a proper way? With the 340 links coming in from the press release, something like that. Should we be more careful with that? Do you think?
Somebody else want to answer? If not, I'm happy to answer.
I wouldn't worry about that, depending on the service as well. If you're going to, basically the lower rating on the scale, yeah, I wouldn't do a lot of that. But if you're going to real press release sites, and one of the things that I use for a guide on that is it actually part of Google News? And, can they tell you Google is putting our stuff in? Not a lot of them can say that. And as Debra illustrated so well, one thing I noticed that using PR Newswire, a lot of their releases were found on TV stations and places like that. So the media was being put on media sites where you want to get visible. Do you really care if you're on, just some press release site that's got 100 others that don't really mean it? I think that kind of stuff is dead.
Yeah.
Real news releases, they have a place. Just like, and what I would use as my guide is, if I won't put it down a social channel, I won't publish that PR. To me, that's kind of like the rule. If you don't want people to see it and it's just about the links, then that in itself should be a little alarm going off in your head, like, why don't I want people to see this? That's what it always should be about.
That's very similar to a litmus test we give to all of our clients when they send us emails asking about where they should get links. And my answer to them is always, if you were cruising the internet and came across this page, would you click a link on this page? Would you trust this page enough to say, yeah, I want to click that? And if they kind of go, well, no, it's like, well, then why would anybody else trust it? Move on.
Can I go back to Brent's question just for a second, just bring up a point? I know that people are really tentative right now about anchor text, and there's even people out there saying, you know, do 20% keyword anchor text and 80% URL, and so forth. And I, you know, for whatever is being said, I think the smart thing to do in this case, if you're running anchor text in press releases, is to keep a couple things in mind. Google News drives results into Google search, and the algorithm there is a little bit different than it is in the Google search engine. Before I go on, let me say, I'm not a Google employee, you know, so I'm not saying this verbatim, but from my experience, if you're doing press releases through the major press companies like PR Web and Business Wire and the rest of them, and because they have relationships with these news sites that are part of Google News, if you're going to get 300 links pointing back to you through your press release that have picked up, if you're really that big a story that you're going to get picked up by that, Google News is going to understand it, okay, because it's being floated through Google News. Right. So I wouldn't worry about that so much, because what you have then are reliable news sources that have been vetted by Google News. You have to go through hoops to be part of Google News. You know, Joe Schmo the ragman for some blog is not part of Google News. So
not usually.
Not well. They've been really different about that lately. They've been really cleaning things up and a little more. I guess choosy is a good word. I'm not sure exactly. So that's just not something through press releases, provided you have, you know, legitimate news. But right. Again, they can see through it pretty quickly. And when you use the free services, that's usually when that stuff ends up on the sites that have been created by the free services to host those press releases.
Also, you have to remember that it gets released on all those sites. And then you have the people that scrape those sites. Right. And the scrape rank, me and Dave come up with that one when we really started doing a lot of press releases, as we started measuring the scrape rank. And in the end, we started to realize that that could be causing a problem when you have that many people scraping those press releases, because they're not on the same type of site that they are when you distribute it. So we were, especially when they started talking about the links coming from those sites, and when we saw the first iteration of Panda, there were a few well-known press release sites that got hit pretty hard, which kind of showed at least two of them have tried to fix their architecture in the meantime, but sometimes I wonder if those aren't losing battles. Right. Just because of what comes into them now. In other words, people are not going to rush to link to that stuff because of the stigma that's kind of attached to it now. And just so everyone knows, we've been graced with Garrett French's presence here now.
Hey, all.
Hey, Garrett.
Can you hear me?
Hey, Garrett.
Hi. Yeah.
Hi, Garrett.
This is fun. This is I'm in my new office. We just moved in, and I'm very poorly lit. It's not as dark as it looks from the camera, but it's been great so far. Now, Debra, you were mentioning something earlier, and this is sort of tangential, spinning off a bit from what you said, but just the quality of the site. And I need to start some kind of way of testing this, or think about a way of testing this. But just the impact that site quality itself has on your response rate, first of all, to outreach, and then certainly the link rate, that the number of links that you get, the link percentage. This is just from working with exact match domain clients. You know, cheap car insurance business, or cheap car insurance calculator biz.net stuff, and it doesn't matter how good the content is that you're creating on that site. Self-respecting linkers and folks who have great links pages aren't going to link to. They're going to take one look at your email at the URL that you're asking them to link to, and not link. So that's just sort of my tangential way of jumping into the conversation, but just something I've noticed lately, and it's just been hammered home, is what a quality website, the difference that building links for a website that is already high quality, how much easier it is than if you're building links for an exact match domain or just a, sort of a lead gen type of website. And it's getting to a point where I'm probably going to start turning away business, probably, not certainly, probably start turning away business that is exact match domain, lead gen type stuff. Don't hold me to that, but I'm definitely thinking about it.
But the thing is, Garrett, in your business, you have to do that, because getting links for those sites is much tougher than it is for the sites where people actually want to be.
Sure. Well, and then I've got, I'm doing a lot of broken link building these days, and that's what I'm really basing this on, this opinion on. And a lot of folks who are used to paying for links, right? They're used to paying whatever a month to get X number of links. They are not used to having to have great quality websites or branded domains. They've got all their shortcut tricks, and what they have has been good enough for them so far. And so I think that's some of what I've been running into as well.
Yeah, I'd like to expound on that a little bit, Garrett. I think that those people are coming to the realization that that website that people really don't want to link to, and that kind of crummy content, those kind of things aren't flying anymore, and they're realizing they have to step up to the plate. Yeah. And actually become, as Dave would say, from the dojo, become remarkable.
Yeah, I've certainly found that in guest posting. I've gotten my rear end handed to me on some guest posting campaigns where I've used content that was less than, or suboptimal, as I've heard some people describe it. And it's brutal. It's brutal now. You can find a home for it for crappy content. You can still find a home for it, but it's not going to be a good home. It's not going to be
the home has no foundation.
Right.
Fall down around your ears.
Exactly. It's like the press release sites you're describing earlier, where the just sort of the made for links press release sites. There's so many of those guest post sites out there now. So
it's interesting you say that, Garrett. Just with my experience in 2012, really running outreach on a larger scale for an e-commerce company, one of the reasons that worked so well was because the company, they weren't just good on paper. They were actually good behind the scenes. The customer service was phenomenal, and that was a big reason it was so successful, just because the whole package of the business was good. Not
sure.
Just online.
Sure. I'm gonna brag. This was a huge link builder moment for me. This happened last week, and I was like, okay, I'm a real link builder now. For a client, we got a link from Stanford, Stanford.edu. I was just, I was running around the house. I was euphoric for a couple days, but I finally, that was when the connection finally, okay, this is a great site that I'm building links for. I'm not really doing any work. It's the site itself that's doing all the work. And that's why we earned that. We didn't earn any. The site was just a great site. It deserved the link, and that's been and I used to believe, and this was within even 3 to 4 months ago, that the content was good enough, you would get links, and that's not always. That's just not always the case, As you found, having a legitimate site or a real site that you're building links for, a real company, can make a big difference. But I will note that I even have, I'm doing some broken link building for a large brand that I thought was going to really increase our conversion rates. Didn't do much at all. They have great content. It's a great site. I thought, oh great, I'm gonna get up. Because in broken link building, I'm finding our average is about 1.5%, and I was thinking, okay, we're gonna get up to 5, standard for them. We'll get 10% on sometimes, but even having a great brand name behind them didn't really have the impact that I thought it would. So that's
what the content is too.
It's decent. It's not amazing, but it's decent, and that's probably more the factor there. But I guess it's just to say that it's there's so many factors that come down to for me when I'm building. I don't do press releases. The only tactic I've focused on for the last about 2 years has been broken link building. So I've really gotten hyper focused on it. But the factors that really seem to make a difference are just the quality of the website. Certainly the quality of the outreach and how related your content really is to the linking page. I mean, it's no-brainer stuff, right? But it just keeps getting hammered home to me over and over again.
Since you are doing a lot of that, and that's something that me and Debra were actually talking about that the other day.
We're going to bring this up. Go ahead.
That's getting harder and harder, as she said. Well, we all used to do that a few years back. Well, not all of us, but it's become pretty popular because of the success that some people are having. One of the things that I wondered about as a strategy for that was finding the broken links and building content for those broken links. Do you do it that way?
No.
Or do you build content and then find the broken links to go with it?
Oh, yeah, we certainly start from the dead opportunity first, but we're rarely replacing content because the large-scale opportunities that we're finding are not recreatable. The mypyramid.gov, for example, government website here in the U.S. Related to the food pyramid, proper nutrition,
right.
50,000 linking domains in Majestic. So, we're not going to recreate that site, but if we have a fitness or health or especially nutrition related piece of content, we could reach out to everyone and say, hey, I call it not a one-to-one replacement, but I don't have a good technical name for it, but where we're giving them the legitimate replacement, and then saying, while you're updating, would you also be open to linking to us or linking to this resource? We're doing a lot of what I call storytelling, or some people will call it some people would call it lying, I think, or deception. But how we approach it is we're saying we're researchers. We're working on an article on XYZ, and we're wondering if they had any suggestions. So we ask up front for suggestions and recommendations. So if anybody has gotten an email like this, it was probably me, or my team. But then we're saying, by the way, we were on this page. We saw that this was dead, and here's something else we found that we thought might be useful. Here's a replacement. So we're giving them that one-to-one we're giving them a real legitimate replacement. But then we'll say, hey, this is something I've written. Would you be open to linking to it as well? I think it's related. But we actually get wonderful responses from people sometimes. Now, some people completely call our bluff and, hey, this was a good one. You almost got me. And we do get that, but it's really not as common as you would think. We're doing thousands of these emails a month. We get some wonderful. It really makes me feel good almost to be something of a spammer because we get such wonderful responses from people sometimes. They're legitimately thankful that we're helping them update their pages. We don't get links from everyone, of course, but we do get a fair amount of thanks from people. I'm sorry, I've completely derailed. We were talking about.
It's a topic that's it's germane. It's using. Let's see where are we? I think that we should talk about outreach because it's kind of replaced another one of the what I would call foundational linking techniques, which was article marketing. And I saw that a lot of people just took the exact same content and are kind of doing guest posting the same one. I would think that the first thing that I would think of when I was doing that is, well, Google has already more or less cut these guys off. Why wouldn't they cut these other guys off? And then when I start going through these backlink profiles, people that did a lot of guest blogging and in that kind of style, you kind of see that as I used to say, I looked at other websites as content opportunities. In other words, I was looking at the quality of the content and the quality of the website from day one, mainly because I never believed that just a link is a link. Sure, it's a link is a link, but some are much better than others, and I'd rather go for the ones that are much better because they all take about the same amount of time to get. Just sometimes you have to do more prospecting to get the better stuff. Anyhow, I'll just move on. And what do y'all think of the blogger outreach? Are you using it? How does it play in your overall strategy? And I guess we'll start with Brent, who just come off a pretty big stint of doing that kind of thing. So yeah, we'll start with him.
I've talked with Garrett quite extensively, when I was working on this campaign. I'm a big believer in outreach, and I think it has a certain stigma attached to it right now. It really comes down to how you run your outreach campaign, and the amount of risk involved with it. It's really a strategy that can pull in any link type. Broken link building is the way it's run. I think the way I run it is outreach. It's to me, I look at it as a way of kind of expediting your networking process online, just as you would offline. This does it quicker online. And if you're doing a really good job with your prospecting, your campaign is very on point. I don't see a lot of risk involved versus the other link building strategies. It really comes down to who's running it though. I think it's going to be around for a while, and I think it's going to have value beyond just traditional SEO ranking value. I've definitely seen that already.
It's marketing. It's getting in front of the right people, and I gotta say it. For me, when I think of outreach, I only think of one tool, and that would be Garrett's. I use it for so many things. It's I found for outreach it was outstanding. But anytime I want anything off of Google SERPs, I go there because you know what? I don't have to gather it all up, put it into a CSV.
No, that's the prospecting side. I do have an actual outreach tool. It's in the works. It's a few months out, but it's an emailer. Which is kind of, BuzzStream has something that is sort of a 1-by-1 email, which didn't serve the purpose that I needed for broken link building. So we did build something, but yeah, definitely for prospecting, finding the opportunities in the first place. Thank you for the plug, Terry. The Link Prospector is
that's what I'm about, man.
It's a Google scraper, guys. I mean, it's just what it is, plain and simple.
Indexer, I told you, never use that scraper word. You have a crawler.
This is my PR agent here. Thank you, Terry. You're right. We're a crawler. I never know who's listening. This is a Google Voice. This is a Google Hangout. Of course.
You're learning.
Yeah. Where's my hat? I need that tinfoil hat, Terry.
Yeah.
Yes. They're always listening.
But that's it. On a note, as far as blogger outreach, we typically remove bloggers from our outreach lists when we're doing broken link outreach, because they're more likely to. I don't know how comfortable this group is with curse words, so I'll just avoid them. But they're more likely to raise a poop storm online and complain about us emailing them, and it's just more of a risk. I find it that's just for the tactic of broken link building. If it's but I agree. I think outreach is the it's pure marketing. If when you have smaller lists that you've handpicked and handcrafted, I think it's it's just from an agency perspective, it doesn't get me excited because it's not particularly scalable. High touch outreach, which I think often generates some of the best links. That's why I tend to look for stuff I can reach out to 1,000 people all at once.
To kind of mention another tool, what you just talked about, I have a tool that now I'm almost ready with that will do bulk emailing and single at a time, right off the review.
Brilliant.
Well, I got to jump in there. I got to jump in there now. When you start talking about outreach and automation, I think you've defeated the whole purpose of outreach. To me, outreach is individual. You've got to go to the people that try to establish a connection, a relationship with them to get any meaningful outreach. Mass mailing your list of opportunities, to me, is the dark side of it.
I'm squarely in the dark side. No, I see a place for both. As the dark side, I can still see the value of the light side, but from a scalability perspective, from being able to deliver, and I sell links, to clients. I don't sell hours, so I'm looking for what can deliver that, and it's typically larger scale outreach. Now, I think when I do link building for myself, I don't even think of it as link building. It's just promotion. It is emailing people. It's participating in back and forth emails and asking for a review. But I don't think of it as link building at that stage. But of course there is some link building to it. But it definitely falls more into the marketing side of things. But I understand where you're coming from. But I would love to hear your thoughts on making high touch outreach scalable, or doing it at. Do you do that at scale for clients, or are you?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't do link building. I build content and I build relationships, but I don't. The links will come or they won't. If I'm doing the relationships right and providing decent content, to your point earlier about dynamite content on a crap site is not going to do anything for you.
I think there's two different purposes. If you're doing outreach strictly for backlinks, you're only going to have this touch point one time, maybe two times.
Right.
But if you're doing it for building up your advocates, building up your community, it is really an extension of customer service.
That's relationship marketing now, Brent.
Right. Yes.
The strongest tool that a link builder or a webmaster can have is a dedicated email list. If you have a dedicated email list of people that have opted into your product, your site, your psyche, whatever, you can outreach to those people and get anything that you want going off the ground before you even go out into the public domain and start asking for links, regardless of what it is you're doing, whether you're doing blogger outreach or media outreach or article content outreach or visual outreach. It doesn't make any difference. If you have a strong email list, they are going to be your biggest supporters for just about anything.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
From that
That's why they say the money is in the list.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, number one, people always say, what's the best tool? Your email list is your best tool.
I love it. I love it. We tried, Deborah, to that point, we tried doing some. It never coalesced the way I'd hoped it would, but we tried doing surveys, customer surveys, and then turning that into content. We got great content out of it, and we got great engagement, but we didn't end up building a lot of links for it. I've experimented with it once, but that is a question that I commonly ask people at the start of a campaign, especially if they're looking they don't have a tactical preference of what I'm doing, just to see if they have that list already, because if they have a good, strong list they email regularly, that they're also willing to let you play with a little bit, because not everybody is. If it's a house that is an e-commerce house and they're used to mailing their list on 4 times a month, and they know what return they're going to get each time they email, I've had a little tougher time getting a spot in the queue with somebody like that. But I absolutely agree. I love a good email list.
Yeah, you know what you can use that for is like qualifying too. Like if they're on an email list, when you reach out to them, you can actually build a different message to those people, because you already have their trust. They've already purchased something from you or using something from you. Those are always the best prospects. Are the customers you already have are usually always the best prospects.
If anybody ever gives you I guess, or has some hesitancy or some pushback, an objection, if you will, for using their email list, I totally get that, because there's theft involved in the rest of it. What I normally do then, I go after people and say, okay, since you're an e-com site or you have some sort of correspondence that's going out to these people, put something passive in the bottom of your email. So many people don't do this. They put it at the bottom and could put a blurb down there that just says, hey, have you checked out our resource site? We have lots of whatever helpful articles or great pictures or videos or whatever it is that you're promoting. And on there, make a passive suggestion to either link to it or visit it. And the same thing on that page. When you go to the resource center on the site, say, hey, we know if you like this thing, go ahead and link to it. People have exit boxes all the time asking you to sign up for newsletters and all. You can do the exact same thing about asking people or suggesting to people passively that they link to you. A lot of times, too, on websites, stuff like, what are those boxes called, where you live chat, where you can talk with somebody on there. Underneath, a lot of them have space where they run ads or where you can put ads. Who says that you can't do that on your site, or you can trade with someone else and passively put a message driving them back to your content centers on your site that says, if you like, LL Bean, how about checking out blank? And you'll notice that a lot of the brands are co-partnering and do a lot of cross-promotional partnerships. Those are the kinds of places that passively you can start asking. You would be surprised at the return that you get from the passiveness. But I get about the email thing. But if you have a newsletter sign up, and all these people do, and when you sign up for a newsletter, you're going to expect to get something in the mail, from the newsletter. So in there, you need to. Do you hit them over the head? And that's what a lot of people do. You cannot hit people over the head. Yeah. You have to ask nicely.
Now, Debra, Debra, I was following in your footsteps, and this has been a few months now, and we sort of left the project by the wayside, but I rented lists, and that was something that I had actually read. You had I love this story you told about the concrete site. Yeah. I didn't get it to a point where I could sell the products to a client, but I rented one list, and gosh, I think it was $1,800, and we did a survey. So we're going to survey these gift shop owners. I think we got maybe 11 responses. It was terrible. But actually, that reminds me, one thing we've done with clients in the past, and I think you'll love this. We wanted them to take a survey. The client list wanted them to take a survey, but we're going to give them a discount coupon if they do take the survey. So we're actually building sales into this. No, actually, I think I got this idea from you. I'm telling you. I'm thinking back. I'm pretty sure I got this from you. But you actually, I did get this from you. But you drive sales from your survey, from the outreach you're doing to try and generate great content, then to build links with.
As long as you keep that offline, don't advertise that kind of stuff online, or on your sites or publicly. Make sure you keep those offers in email, because we have had people smack back, we think, because they were saying, if you link to us, we'll give you a free blank. And so, I'm sorry?
Yikes.
Yes. And so, just keep that stuff quiet. For the first thing, most of all, because of our friends at Google, but secondly, your competitors pick up on that and they emulate the promotion. So you don't need that. You want to keep that stuff in email. Always keep that stuff in email. So can you rent lists still? Yeah, you'd be just amazed, especially from forum owners and people that have newsletters. You know, it's a residual, it's another part of income for them, and they love it. You just have to be creative, you know, with where you buy them. I no longer buy them from the list houses because there's so much junk in them. I usually do it, you know, a mano.
I love it. I went to a broker.
So, Deborah, you'd look for sites that are offering newsletters, and then if you like the site, you would go to them?
Yeah, or if I think that they have a target demographic that's similar, and most of the time, you know, if you're selling one thing and you find someone in an ancillary market, the target demographic is similar enough that, you know, you can offer them some money or offer them product or whatever in exchange for the list. Most people will not give you the list. What they'll do is they will add you to the mailing, and you do some sort of co-promotion in the mailing. It's real important that you establish partnerships with people in this regard and get them kind of nailed down, because as things get more difficult online, that's going to be, people are going to emulate again more toward the traditional offline marketing types things.
Sure.
Same thing with guest blogging. You know, if you don't nail down your blogging spots, you're going to miss out on being featured on the better blogs. And frankly, you know, you need to be featured on at least one of them somewhere. You need the exposure.
And a lot of the larger websites are going to.
That's where social media is so great, you know, because if you get onto those better sites, then through the social outlets, you know, that's just another push for you getting out there, getting your name out there, and then the links start to generate on their own.
How do you charge
you had a comment?
I was just saying that a lot of the better websites are starting to go to. You have to contribute a minimum of 3 months or 6 months before we will reciprocate with
a link,
links or anchor text, and it's making this whole process far more drawn out. But we're seeing more benefit from actually being there consistently, from audience building, than we are from any value we would have gotten from the link.
You know, the other issue is if you go to a better site, then you have a resume, yeah? So it's like if I was going to ask someone to host my guest post, I could always say, dude, I guest posted, you know, for Danny for 5.5 years. Right. There's my resume. Right. And so it gives you kind of that foot in the door, too. Good. You need to start somewhere.
Some of the best sites don't link out at all.
What's the current thinking like on reciprocal links these days? I mean, you know, I've heard them badmouthed in the past. Is there anything new on that?
I have lots of reciprocal links. I just didn't ask for them. I.e., links happen, and not always are the people actually talking when it looks like a reciprocal link.
Well, I think the other thing too, you know, Terry, that I think a lot of people, they jump on the bandwagon of something like, you know, reciprocals or anchor text or EMDs or whatever it is. Somebody says it's bad. They see some evidence that it may be bad, and they immediately say, okay, then it's 100% bad. Yeah. I don't think anything is bad in moderation, okay? You know, 10% of your link profile being reciprocals might be too much, might be too little. But having some reciprocal links is not necessarily bad. Just as having the same anchor text a few times is not necessarily bad. If you get carried away, now you got a major issue. I don't think that that is necessarily a bad thing. I use some reciprocal links with some clients, and I'm sure we all saw recently the fact that Matt Cutts even commented on them being acceptable if there's relevance, even if it's your own site.
I think if you're scaling it as a service, or like they did,
two sites
was
that
it
happen
2006, 2007? Excuse me, I'm sorry, Doctor.
I don't think it matters what you do. It matters where you do it. So if you have, if you're swapping links with another authority site, I don't see where that's an issue. Sure. But really, that type of link swap kind of went out years ago. Yeah. What you get then is...
Well, it's certainly...
what you get now is blog links, what do they call them, blog roll links, or back and forth article links. I think they can be pretty well explained, and as long as they pass you feel like they can pass some sort of visual review, I don't think swapping links is bad. Would I make it a great part of my tactic? No.
Right.
I mean, where do you put them? Where do you put them?
To your point, Deborah, it's putting you get an article on search engine land. That's something that's worth linking to, and of course you got to link back from that as I linked to Deborah. You wrote a review of the Link Prospector, and of course I linked to that. Absolutely. Is that a reciprocal link? Sort. I mean, we link to each other, but
I think that is by the nature, by the physical act, obviously, but did you do that on purpose? And the answer is no. We didn't swap links because we had a prearranged agreement.
Right.
Even though you gave me all that money to review your
Yeah, and something else that may come into play should be the timing of it, the temporal issue. If I throw a link to your site, Deborah, on the 1st of May, and then along about the 27th of June, you link back to me for something, and both those links are relevant. I think Google picks up on the fact that the discoverability was 42 days apart. That doesn't look as obvious as the two links going up on the same day. Okay.
Well, there was link swap software that was out forever, where it was just they would mass email and, hey, you should link to me, and I'll link to you from this page. You put it up, and I mean, it was all automated. I think that sort of is just an absolute no-no. But I think at a small scale, as I think Doc was saying, just a little bit of it, and certainly not necessarily a thought-out tactic. But to some degree you could. I mean, maybe I think pre-linking to people and then sharing that they were mentioned or discussed is fair enough. I did that, a good bit of that for clients. The top 50 blogs and of blah blah blah, and you link out to a bunch of people, and then you hope to get some links back to that. I mean, that's basically reciprocal linking. But I don't know. I think just don't overdo it, and certainly don't use the automated software for reciprocal linking and get all exact match anchor text and that sort of thing.
Well, I just, as a general rule, I try, and this is not something that I quote as a target number to anybody. It's just that I try to never exceed one type of link, whether it be the type of source site or the anchor text. I try to never exceed 20% of my profile being the same sort of link. That just, to me, it seems to be a safe number. That's a very arbitrary thing. I pull it out of my butt, and I've never exceeded it, and it's never hurt me. Maybe 40% is a safer number. I don't know. My guess is that 20% is probably pushing it. But
did anybody hear what sounded like gunfire just now?
Yeah, that's me here.
Okay.
That's me.
Brazil.
The Brazilian street life.
Yeah. I wanted to ask a question. So, sorry. So Diane is asking, what is the best way to search for this? I think that's fireworks. I don't worry. Nobody's shooting anyone.
Oh my God.
Okay,
I don't think that's
anybody
anybody shooting one today. Not right now, at least. So anyways, what is the best way to search for link directories to add your site? She's asking. What is the best way to search for link directories to add your site?
So, general directories that are still online, if she's talking about general directories, which I assume that's what she's talking about, there's probably a handful of them that are left that still have some editorial chutzpah, I guess, if you will, in the eyes of the search engines, and that's the Yahoo directory, the Joant, Best of the Web.
Yeah.
I would probably throw Ezelon in there. I would throw family-friendly sites in there. And I guess that's about it.
Okay, okay, you said Yahoo.
I would do, well, I would pay for me anyway. I always pay for Best of the Web, Yahoo, Family Friendly Sites, Ezelon, and Joe Ant.
2 of those I've never heard of. So.
How's business.com, Deborah? Do you use that one?
Family friendly?
No, I don't. Not anymore. Not since they've changed hands again. They just seem like they're kind of a mess.
Sure.
Yep. Site's in a big mess, I'd say.
So let's just go over that again. Yahoo,
that,
Joe Ant. I wanted to just give Diane the answer. The best directories would be Yahoo, Joe Ant, Best of the Web, Family Friendly Sites, and what was the other one you said?
Ezelon. Ezilon. Ezelon.
Ezelon.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're a little bigger in Europe, but they do have a very good USA directory.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
I think if you're looking at directories, and I'm sure, Deborah, we've talked about this in the past, distinguish between the niche directory and general directory. For sure, niche directories rock. Like Google knows that those are basically on just pretty much one topic. And they're usually reviewed much better. There's lots of reasons why you want those pure niche plays. And to find those, use your keywords and add the word directory. Or, better still, use Garrett's tool, and there's built-in queries, correct, Barry?
Yeah, yeah.
Garrett?
We have, you can sign up and we give you 3 runs of the tool for free. You can select the directory report type and put in a few of your, I wouldn't say necessarily your high, I would say put in your highest level SEO keywords. The stuff that you don't necessarily expect to rank for, but would be kind of awesome if you did. Just your highest level, biggest head terms, and you can put in up to 5 and search away. Now, that said, I'm not sure that there's really, I think just Google alone would be sufficient for some niches. It depends on the niche, really, how many directories are going to be, but I can't imagine there being hundreds of niche directories. I think it's usually, a handful again per niche would be my expectation.
Let me 2 things. Sheldon asked about the DMOZ, the Open Directory Project, or DMOZ. I always try. I always still try to get in there. Sadly, I no longer have any pull over there since I've been gone for quite a while, and everybody's changed.
Everybody's got pull there. It's called a wallet.
Well, I used to.
Just got to know who to pay.
I was an editor for years, and so at least I knew other people there, but they're all gone, so there's nobody there anymore. I do still try, but to that, it's only been 18 months since Google dropped them as their directory, so I still think that they probably have a little oomph somewhere. They're a great place to look for niche directories. If you go to the DMOZ and search on your keyword, typically the category in there will have an option for directories, and you can click on it and go through them. Sometimes those pages have not been updated in a while, so those links are kaput, but that's a really good place to look for them.
I would agree there.
Yeah. I had something else to say, and I've totally forgotten, so never mind.
Niche directory related? Was that?
Yeah, niche directory. What was I going to say? Niche directory.
And there's a lot of associations that have business directories too.
That's great.
Yeah, it's an expensive drop, whereas some of the other niche directories are a little more. I know what I was going to say. If you find a good one, and most niches have some solid niche directories, they are a terrific place to drop content, to drop articles. Most of them have article banks. They have forums in them, and they've really expanded themselves in recent years, and we find them as a great resource for that. Yes, Best of the Web is BOTW.
It's not quite the same as dropping an article on an article easy site, say. It's much better to be on those directories that are doing a few things. Steve, you do a lot of work in that field.
Yeah, it's
did at one point.
slowly tapering off. We've been focusing more on like forums that have articles, have an article section. So you've got a forum that talks nothing about bass fishing, and you're working for Bass Pro or somebody, or Tracker Boats or somebody. Obviously, that's where you want to be. So dropping a solid article for them is a no-brainer. The standalone article directories over the last year
Oh my gosh.
have been tapering off
I'm going to be a
dramatically.
few minutes late, okay? All right, bye.
I think forums, to that point, forums are really overlooked in a lot of cases.
I love them.
I do too. I had a client. This is one of my first clients, 2008 or so, in woodworking. And I think even today there's really not a whole lot of woodworkers that have taken up. And I'm probably wrong. I haven't looked. It's 5 years later, but they're just, no one was doing social media in woodworking except for on forums. They weren't excited about Twitter. They weren't excited about Facebook. They were on forums 1.0. This is social media 1.0, guys. But I think they're so, when people talk about social media today, I never hear people talk about these wonderful forums that are still alive and thriving out there in the right spaces. It's not everywhere, right? I mean, but some, I always go back to woodworking. I'm sure fishing is the same way. I'm sure there's a real just wonderful forum community, or several. Usually there's several that you can engage with. I think they're one of the most overlooked sources for content ideas, just for conversations that are perennial, that keep happening in forums. Then that's an article topic right there. That's going to, well, guess what? Get you links from forums because they're talking about it all the time.
Deb's got to go. So
I do. That was.
Oh goodness.
Thanks so much.
No, that was my daughter, and I forgot to pick her up from school.
That's not good.
She can wait. She's fine. She's in the 9th grade. She can wait for just a minute. Forums. I totally agree. And Steve, if you're looking for something about fishing for serious, you want to check out the groups at Yahoo. Yahoo groups is something nobody talks about anymore, but they are amazing, and especially for I would say outdoor enthusiasts, cooking, more of your society type niches. Yahoo groups is just an amazing outlet, and it's humongous, and it's incredible how many people are on there. What's interesting about Yahoo groups too is the demographic runs older, which is kind of good, especially because older people have a tendency to spend more money. So it's a good demographic, wise is there. Yeah, we rock. And well, I had to laugh this week. Somebody had, I think it was Aaron Eberhard, had written an article on Search Engine Watch, and we were referenced because of our age, So I was like, damn, I'm feeling old this week. But the other thing about forums, people who are on forums typically have a very high knowledge level, which if you go through and you look at the senior posters, it's listed on the side in their avatars. These people have blogs, and they are an untapped source of guest blogging, but more so, they're an untapped source for writing, to write for you, or to be a guest writer and that kind of thing.
Brilliant.
Because they are enthusiasts. Yeah, so they really are a super duper thing. But so are Google or Yahoo groups. So
Deborah, one question before you go about Yahoo groups. How do you approach them? Who is the gatekeeper, and how do you? You
have to join, and you've got to join the group and be part of the group. You can't just go in there because they're closed. Or I haven't been in there in several months, so they might have changed things, but I doubt it. But I like to farm that place too, and do it before Marissa Mayer figures out it's a money loser, and takes it offline. But there, you have to go in and join, is to answer your question. Okay. And once you do, though, it's pretty easy because they keep an archive of all of the years back, so you can go back through all of the postings if you want to.
I was just thinking that would also be a good place to start to look for the influencers in social. they would have had their background start probably in forums.
They do, and you'd be surprised at what you find. You'll also be surprised at forums have Facebook pages. And if they're a really active forum, and they have a Facebook page as well, so look for the tie-in there. And one quick thing, buying Facebook ads right now, especially with the targeting that they can do, is an awesome way to build links, because you can really get people focused on either finding those people that want to link to your content, or finding people who can write it, or finding people who can host it. And I'll just leave you with that little tidbit to figure out. But Facebook ads right now are, really a good thing to go to. But all of the old venues, what they do is they just harbor a lot of opportunity.
That's a great point, Deb, because I think the other thing too, the people that you find that are very active in forums are going to be very receptive to opportunities to write articles or guest posts for you.
They really are, Sheldon, because they're geeks. They're at heart, they're on there because they understand how to manipulate their computer, and they have a love of something. So it's the best of both worlds for people like us. We're looking for people like that.
Right.
So
and a lot of those people are in there specifically because they're trying. They're starting their own brand building.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now another thing similar to forums, though, is like right here on Google Plus is the communities. They're forum style based, so that has some opportunities there too, I think.
Got to run, but this has been fun.
Thanks so much, Debra.
Wonderful to see you again, Deb.
Yeah, you too, and I'll see you all on the web.
All right.
See
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye, Debra.
Good seeing you,
Bye,
Deborah.
Aaron.
Bye.
To pick up where Garrett left off, we were talking about forums and content creation. One of the little tips or secrets we've been using for a long time is we'll go to a niche forum and you look at all the sticky posts, the pinned posts at the top of every forum topic,
Right.
because that's the question that gets asked all the time.
Yep.
And that's the content you want to write. That's the infographic you want to create, the video you want to create. And most of those topics are closed, so for no new content.
Right.
But you can contact the forum owner and say, hey, here's some more information about this subject that would probably be really good to be in this, pinned topic, and they'll open it up and pin it for you, place it for you. Drop a solid link for it, and drive a ton of traffic for you.
I want to share a story that's similar as far as content creation and forums. But back in 2008, when I was working for this woodworking site, I would actually ask questions in the forums. Not everyone, and I had to eventually. I was taken to task a number of times, and I learned many hard lessons. And woodworkers are not very forgiving of marketers, but anyhow, I persevered, and and that, just as a side note, if anyone is thinking of going into forum engagement, you certainly are. You either need to be completely transparent or as opaque as you could possibly be. And I would lean at this point. I would lean towards transparency. But anyhow, I would ask for tool recommendations, because I'd want to write a guide. The best best circular saws. And so I just throw a thread up. Hey, go out, because there were 6 or 8 that I was a part of, and I'd go to all of them. Then I just tally the results, and that was whichever one's got the most votes, and those were the best. And we were an Amazon affiliate at the time when it was still equitable to be so. And that was one of our posts that would go up. Most dangerous power tools. I asked people what they thought their most dangerous power tools were, and that was a huge hit in the forums. So tons of replies, and turned into a great piece of content. So the forums, and I don't know, you really have to tread carefully in this, because you're directly taking their words, in some cases quoting them, which is completely legal to do, but just not everybody likes it, and they might ostracize you. And some people wouldn't comment, but I did take to saying in my threads, and this was because of some feedback I got from someone who didn't like what I did. I quoted him without his permission. He didn't realize he's going to be quoted. So I would say, what you say here may be used on toolcrib.com, warning. And some people ate it up. You know, some people are just hams. They want to have their name out there. So they'd see me post and they go, oh, I'm going to get on Toolcrib again. But other people completely avoided it. So if you're going to do something like that, just tell people that that's what you're thinking. And frankly, approaching the forum, we typically would approach forum owners first and ask their permission to engage there. I think my guess is in this day and age, more and more people are going to be asking you for money to do that, because a lot of the bigger forums, at least in woodworking that I recall, had paid sections just for, you know, Porter Cable, any of the big names. Bosch would have their own section that they paid for, that they sponsored, that people could come and ask, because they're such big forums, you know, for this topic. But anyhow, just tread carefully and ask for permission unless you know enough about the space to be opaque, I guess.
Hey, Garrett, I have a quick question for you.
Probably raise some eyebrows, eh?
Say again?
I was just asking Steve, who does a lot of forum moderation, when you do what we call cross posting on multiple forums, the same question.
Yeah.
They picked that up, brother.
Yeah. Matter of fact, we've gotten to the point over at a couple of them where it's an insta ban.
No kidding.
So yeah, we have mods who, that's what they do. If they see a low post count person come in and post a specific question, we'll give it 6 hours, and then do a exact max search for it. And if it comes up in more than 2 places, they're insta banned and gone.
Yeah.
It's just
It's gotten so what I'm talking about, it's gotten out of hand then.
It's always been like that.
What-
The forums that me and Steve, I was on with Steve, that's how I know it. Steve and I actually met on a forum a few years.
Web Pro World, we're starting to be much more aggressive with that. Are
people generating content, or what are they doing? What are they trying to?
What usually it comes in with, you know, a low post count person will ask a short question that's maybe a couple of lines long, not very big, or they'll come in and they'll just drop a little nugget of knowledge, and you'll see it on 12 different forums, and it's all posted within a few minutes of each other. It's real obvious what they're doing, and it's just banhammer gets dropped.
Banhammer.
I love the banhammer. I wield it with a very strong hand.
That's a T-shirt that needs to get made right there.
Hey, what are you guys' thoughts on forum profile link building? Since we talked about forums and link building, I know they get spammed a lot and stuff, but
most popular forums have those pages completely de-indexed and no followed. And I know when we were running SEO workshop and SEO shop forums, we actually aggressively filtered out link profile or forum profiles. If you had 0 posts after 60 days, you were deleted entirely. So we went the other direction from most of the forums that say, you know, we've got 400 million users. No, you don't. You've got 4,000 users. But you've got 400 million people who signed up to get the free link.
Got a link, yeah.
You know, so our forums tended to be very, very small user counts, but every single person there was active.
Yeah.
right.
And we're
Steve,
seeing that more and
I have a
more.
question for you. Was what I was doing, was that pretty egregiously in violation of? Was that awful?
I wouldn't. It's like everything else. It's how it's done.
Yeah.
You know, and there's, you know, it's terrible because we'll make an exception for one person and we won't make an exception for the next 30, which is kind of an issue for me because I'm kind of a fan of, if you're going to slap one person, you got to slap them all. And
Right.
just because they've been there for 5 years, don't mean nothing to me.
Right. We were linking back to people too. Like we'd link
Yeah.
back to the thread and
Sure.
put names in there. I mean, it wasn't like we were just copy and paste and then put our name on it.
Right.
'Cause for me, I thought it was a way to showcase the forums as well and try and drive some traffic towards them. I think that's how I pitch it to the forums.
You can tell the difference. We actually added all the forums that I'm actively involved in. I now have a mouse over that I can just swing my mouse over the top of their IP address and it pulls up what country they're from. and I know that's a horribly racist thing to say, but you can make an awful lot of quick judgments based on that one little piece of information.
Sure.
Right.
And and there are exceptions to every rule, obviously, but for the most part, forums have been abused for so long. There's nothing new.
Right.
And it's the more general forums, the stuff that are owned by large companies like WebPro World. They're a little less concerned with keeping the community clean than they are with building their list. Because everybody that signs up automatically gets added to their email list.
Right. I used to work over there at the WebPro World.
So, I used to have a product on how to make money off of SIG files and forums, so I was probably part of the problem.
Now I don't feel so bad about spamming forums like I used to do. I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one.
In profile spam, I've seen a couple of people that had unnatural linking that were
it's called SIG file profits.
Profile spam, and that's not a good one at all.
Well, if anybody wants a prime example of what having 30,000 XRummer profile links dropped on your website can do, threaten me. I will gladly pay the $15 to show you.
So don't send you a link removal request threatening to sue, huh?
Yeah, well, that's the other, on the other side of link building is link removal. Yeah. And it's gotten out of hand.
Big time.
Because people have gone from, hey, we've decided that you've got a low quality website. Well, there's a great way to impress me to begin with.
Right, right. We think your site sucks, so take our link off of it.
And if you don't take it off, we're going to add you to our disavow list, and that could hurt you. It's like, well, not as much as these 30,000 XRummer links are going to hurt you. So,
unbelievable.
There's a way to be polite about that. If you want your link gone, just ask.
Well,
no problem with taking your link down because you're an idiot.
Steve, hey, Steve, I wonder how the SEO of link building in Costa Rica is these days.
Yeah, I think he had some issues as well. But it's just we've never really been big link builders here. We've been more of I want to say community builders is a horrible term too, but we've always just basically done traditional marketing.
Inbound marketing?
We go where the customers are.
Looking for an audience. That's what I call. I'm looking for an audience. Always have been like that.
And the trick is you got to think laterally, because if you're going right down the center of your niche, you're going to be right there with all your competitors. So you got to think to the left and the right a little bit. If you've got a self-storage locker, teaming up with funeral homes is kind of a neat plan. It's kind of morbid, but if you work out a system where grandma's passed away, where are you going to put all her crap? And the funeral homes work with you to build some relationships with the local self-storage units. So you take all grandma's stuff, put it in self-storage until you're ready to deal with that part of life. And
right.
So you're going to have to think a little laterally as well, too, because all the self-storage guys are going right down the same path. So you have to come up with other ways.
That's what I call it. I call it even with press releases and any kind of let's call it content marketing. I'm always saying, what's the hook? What's our angle?
Right.
What's going to make us different than the 10 other guys who are the exact same thing.
So I like what Steve's saying. I mean, you can do the branding like the Grandma's Dead mini storage units, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, and I mean, this comes back to where Google's always said, build relationships with people in it's related content, related topics. I can make damn near anything related to damn near anything else in 2 steps.
Hey, cell phones. It's related to everybody on every site because everyone has a cell phone. So there is no relation. It's every person on there is a potential customer. They're a potential, they're going to use that product. So why would I care whether it's related or not? They're all related to it. I never understood that rationale for finding links that they have to be related. No, they have to be
fun game.
targeted.
We used to play that game all the time. It was almost like 6 Degrees of Separation with Kevin Bacon.
I was just going to mention that. Yeah.
Can you relate these two topics to each other in 2 steps?
Right.
Yes, I can.
Right.
No. And that proved a lot of things for us.
We do a lot of that in broken link building, Steve. So
Yeah.
we'll say, you know, for my, well, I don't know who's listening. Gosh. So
Hopefully, lots of people.
I know. I'm like, oh man, this client could be online. I'll just give an example that was sort of unexpected. We didn't create the content, but we found an opportunity, heart health site that was down, and they had changed their homepage. All they had done is change their homepage. It didn't 301 redirect, so there was, I think, 800 sites still pointed at it. I had a client with some wonderful content on heart health and addiction and how addiction can impact the health of your heart, which of course it does. And so that's, and then I was describing that to Ken McGaffin. I'm doing a lot of webinars with him these days, and he called it creative relevance. You know, that leap that Steve you're talking about, that one step you can take. But that was a prime example. And we do a lot of that because so often in broken link building, you don't know what's going to be dead. You don't control what's dead. You only control how creatively you can make some relevance between what is dead and what you're going to be promoting to these people who are still linking. I love it. I think it's one of the most important skills, I think, and certainly for broken link building, but I think it's just a really powerful skill to have, to be able to see those kinds of
one of the most fun skills to have.
Have you written any articles on it, Steve, like walking it through or how to do it?
I very religiously avoid writing about anything that I do because I don't like to share things, because the last couple of times we shared stuff, it just got out into the wild and was horribly abused. You know what I mean? So when I do share things, it's usually in a real private community where I'll sit down like this with just 5 or 6 people and say, okay, here's what we're doing. This is how we're doing it, and this is why it works.
Right.
That's why I've never really built that reputation online as the go-to guy, because I try to hide
what you're doing. And I've been doing that more and more lately. Same reason, just, you know, you find something that's really working well and you'd prefer not to.
It's called wisdom.
The last time we did something in public, we mentioned how to get followed links on your Twitter profile. And within a week and a half, a couple of big name SEOs put out these giant blog posts about it and just blew it up.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, thanks, guys.
That's the worst. Getting your ideas poached by the big shops with a lot of reach.
Yeah. Like, we laugh about that over in the dojo quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's like, we were talking about that 6 months ago. Thanks for joining the club.
Right.
But we talk about it in private, and I think that's what makes these smaller groups better.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with can leaks hurt you? We demonstrated and could prove almost at will 5 or 6 years ago that you could hurt a website with links.
Sure.
But nobody wanted to believe us because we refused to give exact low-level details of how we were doing it. But we were able to blow websites clean out of the index for, very specific things.
Well, I would say, like, people that, like myself, who knew the people involved, I never doubted it for a moment. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of why you got to be pretty careful about who you.
When Mickey the Thumb tells you that this is going to hurt,
yeah, you gotta believe him, right? Yeah, because I know when that first was going around, I was pretty skeptical. But as soon as seeing the people involved and just seeing enough of it to say, okay, that was good enough for me. Also, figured out the one main component to it, and made a lot of sense.
It's like everything else in the world, it's all about thresholds.
Yeah.
Once you cross that line, it's almost impossible to uncross it. Unfortunately, I do that all the time with my wife, so.
That's why you and the dog are in constant company, eh, Steve?
Yeah. I dance across that line with her all the time. But
You work so hard at it, though.
she makes it easy. I'm just looking through my notes real quick here just to see if there's anything we haven't covered.
Yeah, thanks. I couldn't find mine. And I was the one who sent them out, so there you go.
I think as far, we probably should start wrapping up. We're closing in on 2
Yeah.
hours here. I think one of the biggest things we can probably all agree on, anything that's horribly automated should be avoided. There are tools, automation tools that are useful and can be used, but when it's a mass tool like Xrummer, where you just put in a couple of lines and push a button and, wow, look, I got 10,000 links. Those things you just need to avoid like the plague. There's almost no good way to use them.
Just like a spinner.
Exactly. Article spinners is another example. I have yet to see an article spinner do half as well as a real writer.
Right. And then you got to kind of look at where those article spinners are putting their stuff. I think that is as big a problem as the spinning.
Yeah.
These people say, well, how would Google know that a blog is doing, that a guest blog is like a sham, it's just paid posts? Well, look at the front page. We've seen it, Steve. As soon as you look at it. This is bad.
I was talking with a blog network owner over on Wickedfire, and he was talking about how his network was undetectable.
Yeah, right.
And so out of curiosity, I paid to be on 3 of his blogs. And he gave me the URLs to prove that they had been posted. And within 2 hours, I had identified over 180 of his blogs. And it's like, if I can do this manually by myself in 2 hours, what do you think Google can do?
Yeah.
In 2 minutes.
if you're able to find the fingerprints and footprints that easily, they can.
Yeah.
So it's, all this. I mean, and again, we come back to niche, we come back to thresholds, we come back to how heavily you use it. In some of these niches, this stuff still works, and it probably always will. But then again, on the other side of the coin, if you've got a real business with a real brand, you just need to avoid the quote easy way out and do it the hard way. Do it right.
Hey, Steve, quick question. Going back to something you said earlier, though, do you think Google gives a pass on certain techniques to certain niches? Then
I don't think that they give them a pass. It's that they have so little else to go on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's probably
right. What a big brand can do and what Joe Schmo can do, 2 different things again. Because that big brand, they're expected to be in the results. Whether they're spam or not, people, if they're a well-known brand, when they search on that brand, they expect to see the brand.
Let's see. We were laughing. There's a niche that we follow pretty closely, and the entire first page was nuked, just completely nuked. Everybody that was on page 1 was gone, and we're talking a high dollar money term here. And the guy that slipped into number 3 had 28 links to his website. All of them were for Google+, but he had just published a real book, not a self-published book, not an Amazon ebook. This thing was a real hard copy. Go to Barnes & Noble and buy it off the shelf book. And he's killing it. He's absolutely killing it. And everybody else in that market is just freaking out because all their money's gone and they want to know where this loser came from. It's like, well, this loser actually did something useful.
Well, look at the dojo. Dave and I didn't do anything. We're stuck. We're trying to move for SEO training, right? Stuck on the 3rd page for years, literally years. All of a sudden, we're sitting number 3. And all the shit.
I went to Fiverr and bought you a bunch of links.
All the poop that was above us for using article marketing and all that, all the stuff that me and Dave were saying, don't do that stuff.
But see,
we replaced them.
This is the argument you and I have had. You and I have this argument all the time, though. What name a business that can wait 3 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. it comes down to our expectations, right? Our expectations where we know this niche, it's not going to be easy.
You weren't shelling out $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 a month to somebody saying, just wait, it's going to happen for 3 years.
Agreed.
That's brutal.
Because Dave and I, when we see you're throwing money in the toilet, we say, hey, let's throw it at least in a different toilet.
Throw it in my toilet.
Yeah. Well, what did we do instead? We spent our time building out our social channels.
Yeah.
And what did that do? That's probably why we went from 3rd page to number 3. Because we have a nice following on Twitter, Facebook, G+, all those places.
But let me ask, did you use bots to build that up, or was it was this by hand?
All natural. Yeah. All natural. We don't automate those kind of processes. Yeah.
But again, see, Terry, now you're crossing over into the authority aspect. See, you've built authority by all those different venues that you're building in, and I think that we're seeing Google is leaning more and more towards authority. I think that they're going more and more towards that in lieu of links. I don't think links are ever going to go away, but I think they're taking a much smaller, having a much smaller impact, and think that authority's impact is going to grow.
Links are important. Links will always be important. If not for the ranking value they provide, for the traffic they provide.
Yeah.
Sure. That's the thing. Go ahead, Steve.
No, but that's always been our goal. When somebody comes on the forum and says, I need to get links, and it's like, well, okay, what do you want from those links, or should I pay for this link? It's like, well, I don't know. How much traffic are you going to get from that link? Well, I don't know. Let's say, well, if you don't know how much traffic you're going to get for it, how do you know how much to pay for it?
Yeah.
It's one thing to pay a random blogger $500 to write about you. It's a totally different thing to pay VentureBeat $5,000 to be featured as an up and coming whatever.
Sure.
Not that VentureBeat would ever allow anybody to pay to be there.
Yeah, not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah. They don't use their publishing properties like that, Steve. Really?
No. TechCrunch,
of course not.
Yeah, Mashable. None of those guys actually will let you pay to be there.
But that's kind of for anybody, I think, and a lot of that comes from experience. Like, we started, Steve, before search engines were a big part like it is now. When we started, it was just another channel that we used with discussion groups and stuff like that, right? We were marketers, and that's most SEOs are marketers who learned webmasters. Like in the early days, we were webmasters who knew marketing.
Right.
And knew how to find the marketing channels. That's where our, our foundation is. It's in marketing, not in the actual, saying. That's why we don't often, well, in my case, I can't speak for Steve, opt out for the automation. But I know Steve's coming around.
I mean, automation has its place, and automation is a wonderful thing for taking care of grunt work, but there are areas where automation should be avoided.
X-Rumor would be one of them.
Yes. APIs are a wonderful thing. They make life easy. So
we've come up on an hour and like 40 minutes, I think, roughly. It's been a pleasure doing this, and I think we're going to have, build an audience here. And
this is a lot of fun.
Doing this weekly. So if you didn't see us, but you're seeing the recording, know that SEO Pros Helpline will be every Wednesday. I'll be here for sure, whether Steve and Aaron and Doc and some of the other friends here are going to join me. Well, they'll probably be a changing crowd.
Thanks for putting this on, Terry. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, I can't you know, thank you.
I came for the free chicken you promised, Terry.
Yeah, what the hell?
Yeah, it's in the mail.
Yeah, it's been a good discussion.
Okay, I hope everybody enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon.
See you
And
soon,
remember,
Later.
SEO Pros
Bye.
Bye.
SEO Pros will be open for business starting next week. So
Awesome.
come around and see us. We're here to help the public find the people that they need to get their work done. So with that, final plug, adieu.